Hi, good afternoon. Karibu tena. Today we're located in this pretty nice spot. I believe it's a cigar lounge, something of the sort. Welcome back to our FireStarter Africa podcast / YouTube channel. Today we're in this great place I've just said, and today we're sort of interested in picking up some news, but rather not so much on the front of the big coin crashes that have happened, but more on the fact of what cryptocurrency and blockchain are doing to our region, in especially East Africa. And I wanted to start with the news. About a week or two ago, in Uganda, we've been having a lot of crackdowns on cryptocurrency firms and individuals who have been participating in this, and maybe we can shed some light on how we wanted to address this issue in an appropriate manner. Starting with Prof. Welcome, Prof. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
As well as Lisa, our host here. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
And thank you for this occasion again. So yeah, I'd like to ask about this situation in Uganda. It's a bit puzzling. There's no real crackdown officially by law, but there is a lot of strong words, a lot of noise.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that usually happens when there is no regulation or there is no regulatory framework in a country. And many African countries have not quite understood what exactly they need to do in this emerging space. Technology is changing so fast, there is no reversal. But in the absence of the government looking the other side and leaving the consumers in a very vulnerable situation, then you get people who will take advantage of the space.
Yes.
And then when people who take such an advantage come in to exploit the citizens, the government overreacts. But the best way to do this is to have proper enabling regulation. What do I mean by that? We have said if we have not fully understood what type of innovations that are going to come out of this space, we need to create a regulatory sandbox. A sandbox where both the government and the players are working together to find a sustainable solution. Now what we find is that government doesn't want to come in, it doesn't want to do this, and when the citizens complain, they come in to protect the consumer, but in the process, they mess up the process of innovation. The emerging technologies are such that we can break through and create new sustainable innovations, or fail because government has closed the door. So for African governments, what we need to do is to be able to understand this emerging technology. There are many technologies that are coming, which we should not close the door, but take advantage for Africa to leapfrog.
Right.
So what the Ugandan government may be doing is that they want to protect the consumer, but without the knowledge of how. Because what has happened is that in the space of cryptocurrencies, there are cryptocurrencies which have utility, and there are cryptocurrencies which have no utility, meaning that there is no clear source of value.
Right.
And citizens need to understand this. So if we had a regulatory sandbox, all this will be said there. When you bring your crypto, you would have to explain what is your source of value. And then that way, government would proactively protect the consumers. So what they have done now is that we have blocked any chance of innovation.
Right.
Let us just stay in the dark, which is a mistake because this technology is going nowhere.
Yeah. So rather than fostering a FOMO, as we call it, and a fear of missing out, we're actually creating just fear of an atmosphere, and maybe we need to sort of transfer that in a beneficial way. Yeah, so we'll start with some of the questions that we have for you today.
Yeah. As Daniel has said, today's topic is adoption of blockchain technologies in African countries. And the first question I'd like to ask you, Prof, is what is blockchain?
Well, blockchain is a technology which sometimes is referred to a distributed ledger system, whereby you don't have a central place. The best example I can give you is everything that we've been doing before has a centralized system. Say like in finances, we have central bank, which controls all the monetary issues for the country. And sometimes such centralization creates different kinds of values which are too expensive for the consumers. For example, the current market structure for the banking is that the banks would act as intermediaries for any transaction that we are doing. Between me and you, we simply have to go to the banks for you to transfer money to me. They extract value out of it. That is their source of revenue. And the distributed ledgers, they are saying there is actually no need of doing that. We can deal directly and create a level of transparency that we can grow this in such a way that we become more productive than it has been before. This is the bone of contention where the financial institutions want to control resources the way they have controlled it before. And we have a new groups of people saying we would be more inclusive if we created a decentralized system, that many people would get houses, for example. If you look at what is happening in Mozambique, they are actually now able to build houses for citizens at a much lower cost than through the traditional financial institutions. So it's a new way of creating greater inclusivity for citizens. Yeah.
Maybe we can tell our viewers what are some of the blockchain technologies we have in the Kenyan market.
We are beginning to see the use of blockchain in especially streamlining supply chains, where you have many players. For example, farmers have suffered for many, many years, where they create value and they don't benefit from the value until the marketers have sold their product. We're beginning to see companies setting up and saying, we can recognize your asset the moment you hand it to somebody. We will recognize that asset. Even the government of Kenya created something similar to that by creating the warehouse receipting system, where once you deposit your produce, that produce is recognized as an asset. Now you can take that receipt and trade with it. It has never been so before, but this technology is going to enable us that multiple numbers of people can be able to transact in such a way that they benefit than the previous times.
I think you've touched there on efficacy.
Yeah.
You've touched there on sort of streamlining the supply chain process, which is a big issue here, not only just because of our roads, but so many other delays that are caused in the market. And also another thing I think that's fascinating is the very fact that you can actually prepare from source or from the root if you use this blockchain technology, where you can start from the root and you can create the ledgers and the genesis block, as we call it, whereby you're able to trace where this produce was made from, which region it was coming from, and you can actually create more value, I think, because when you say this comes from a specific region, now I may be even going, maybe actually, it's the wine and the cigar
it's not just a specific region.
Of course.
There are people who are very honest. They have used organic methods of growing their produce. but then they are grouped together.
That's the point.
Now, if you are able to track and trace from source to the end,
Yes.
those who are honestly growing their produce in an organic way would actually benefit.
And you can create all these tiers of business that, of levels, because if you have more of that transparent process across in very nice growing areas in Kenya, for instance, and you can group them in a more specific pattern, in a more transparent pattern, then I think you can actually create layers. And I think the wine or the cigar is causing some kind of stir for debate, because we talked about that in wine, especially because they say you have the AOC in French is appellation de contrôler. So it means how specific you go into a region. And the more specific you grow and say, hey man, my cashew nuts are from this particular region, you can actually create a lot of different layers in the economy because of the technology that it underpins, apart from these obvious things that we just keep talking about, cryptocurrency, but in terms of the valuableness inside our industries. Yeah.
You're actually going to see more and more track tracing and creating more transparency, even in education, in healthcare, in all areas, all sectors are going to benefit from this going forward.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe we can lead on to another question here.
It actually also moves us from Web 2.0, where we have been, to Web 3.0. What happened in Web 2.0 is that big companies took our data, controlled our data. Now we have opportunity to transfer that to the individual and no longer be taken advantage by big companies. Maybe meaning that they can ask us for permission to use our data and be able to pay us. So we are moving into a space where everybody would benefit from who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Kenya, do we have any guidelines or bodies that help promote adoption of blockchain technologies?
No, I was chairing the blockchain artificial intelligence task force. What we just did was the roadmap. And what we are encouraging government to do is to have a policy framework which will lead to a legal framework. We need a legal framework to protect the citizens in a more responsible way. How? Because if we created a legal, because blockchain works very closely with artificial intelligence. Several stages we would have where machines would make decisions on our behalf. What would happen if the machine makes a wrong decision? What would happen if the machine discriminates against you? So we need to create that legal framework and stop vilifying our technology before we fully understand the benefits.
I think you've talked about it. You've given some of the opportunities that these blockchain technologies has brought into the African markets. Maybe you can elaborate that further.
Opportunities are many that we are already seeing. Even as we sit here, there is cross-border trade, which is facilitated by blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So there are some countries which have no forex. And because they have no forex, their brothers and sisters who are remitting resources to the country are paying them using the crypto, and they are using crypto to pay on cross-border payments. So the citizens are way ahead of governments, and this is why governments must pay attention that this is not a passing technology. This is something that is going to transform the continent of Africa, and we must begin to embrace it in a much more responsible way. I was a member of the task force that created responsible artificial intelligence principles in the OECD. And we want to see responsible artificial intelligence in Africa. But governments are not talking about that. Instead, They are just moving and trying to arrest people without creating a framework under which they can understand the emerging technologies.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about something as well. Of course, there's going to be a lot of seismic shifts. There's going to be revolution. There's going to be evolution in all this technology because of the current setup of our society at this moment. A lot of people who are on agency basis, a lot of people who are doing, I don't want to use the word middleman, but there's a lot of processes in our labor force and our industries where there are things where it could be automated. It could be adopted using blockchain technologies. In other words, I think that's a key area as well. Maybe we have to be not just careful, but obviously open at the same time, walking the plank plus not trying to fall in it, and see how we can balance that out. Because I think there's a lot of manual laborers, there's a lot of the skilled level is coming up to par, but there's a lot of parts where there could be some gaps. And maybe, do you think there could be a little bit of a hesitation or a worry in terms of jumping from, say, we are calling ourselves at now a slowly manufacturing society, to something further with AI, with robotics, with blockchain and all that? I think there's that little bit of a fear as well. And maybe you could address that, unless it shouldn't be discussed as a fear.
You're saying that Africa would grow how other
exactly
the economic growth that other countries experience, from Europe to Asia,
yes,
was that from agrarian to manufacturing,
correct,
to service,
industrialization,
manufacturing industrialization.
Yeah.
But we don't have to follow that pattern.
Correct.
We can go straight into the information age,
yes,
and do so well there. There are so many opportunities actually that would enable us completely grow the economy without ever going through the traditional methods of economic development.
Right.
I say this because if you remember in 2014, Kenya and Nigeria rebased their GDP,
yes,
because we were not able to capture it well without ICTs. So ICTs played a key role in actually opening up to understand the economy and say, well, our GDP is not this much, it is this much. Again, the more we get people digitalized,
yeah,
the more we create opportunities,
right,
for people. Yes, there are people who may lose their jobs, but these jobs move the others, they move to new places. So what we need to focus more,
yes,
is training and retraining young people. For example, now, if you look for online that you want to data analytics jobs in Kenya, there are thousands, but there are no takers of the jobs.
Right.
And it's because universities have not understood how to match demand and supply. Demand for labor and supply for labor. So we actually need to go back and say every student in the university must understand data analytics. So, because even an accountant, by the way, they are not going to do double entry, which used to happen. They are going to analyze the financial systems, right, and be able to make recommendations. So definitely there are going to be changes, but there are going to be a lot of jobs for everybody, yes, because in agricultural sector, where we are looking at precision farming, there will be people who would drive the drones to see how the crop is doing. There are people who would end up getting into the farm and doing something, but it's a totally different new space where you do things where they are needed to be done. And then, like right now, we're looking towards understanding accidents, how to avoid accidents, whatever. We have to train. That's what we call machine learning. We have to train our roads to understand who is breaking the law, and then they are reprimanded. Then you have people who are driving proper on the road to avoid accidents. Who is going to train that? And even the training is not just going to be in English, it's going to be vernacular. Who are the people who speak vernacular? There are people of the lower end who don't understand what is happening, but they can be trained on how to train vernacular systems that our people would understand and take advantage of the emerging technologies.
That's a lot of stuff. But I think that coincides with our expressway just opened recently.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking about the whole case of how we need to also learn that. Have you been on the expressway yet? Or
I've driven a short distance.
Fantastic.
But it requires what we call IoT.
Yes, yes.
And then smart cameras.
Absolutely.
So that everybody drives on the road. Most accidents we have is because of people not obeying the law. Yeah?
Very simple.
And if they are caught and a ticket is sent, that's when they will drive properly on the highway and they begin to understand. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that. And then the last thing I wanted to sort of maybe dwell on, or not dwell on, is just a little facet. I come from, I grew up in Kenya, but I come from Korea originally. I just wanted to mention the fact that there's a trend growing in Korea nowadays, even in the last few years, is, and this is a little snippet, where parents now, they have already read into, I think I encourage parents and I encourage older population to start looking into the, not the details of the technology, but what it's going to do as a game changer. And a lot of this is happening in little bits in terms of simply as parents now rewarding their kids with little bits of crypto, little bits of coins, things that they've studied, and say, hey, go run with this and see what you can do about your life, because coding is huge. We've talked about how Kenya government is working on competency-based education, which is a great shift. And I think that can tie in all with the fact that you can motivate some kids, not because we want to break the law or go against the financial system per se, but give the tools to kids to start learning from a young age and see where they can use it to good use. So in a nutshell, Korea, a lot of the parents are just organically doing this. And maybe, I don't know, do you think we'll see that in Kenya soon? Or?
There is no better way of teaching children on how to invest. Imagine you give them at age 5, and when they are 10, the thing has grown by 5-fold. They would begin to understand that investment starts early enough. Even here in Kenya, I know people open bank accounts for their children, only that they earn very little amount of money, and then inflation eats it all up. That we need to understand, the higher the risk, the more the returns.
Right.
So you actually need to take risk when they are young. As they get older, they don't take huge risks.
Right.
And this is a theory that is proven. As you become older, people like us, we should be having more cash, which can help you if you are sick. Yes. When you are young, even if you lost everything, you can recover. You have time to recover. So the Koreans are doing it that is the proper way of doing it. I am not against banks, but banks can make you poor because they don't compensate the investment. The returns on the investment is just peanuts.
Right.
So we need to invest in products like land. Me, for example, I bought small pieces of land for my kids.
Congratulations.
If I had put that money in the bank, they would be laughing at me that this is, I can use this to buy shoes. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. I think with that, we wanted to sort of bring a teaser to this. And next week, actually, we're going to bring in someone prominent in this crypto sort of space to come and create more momentum and try to understand a little bit more, not only just on the big picture, but from the baby steps all the way to the top, I think is very fundamental. And I really appreciate you inviting us to this space here. I'd love to stay.
So this is not my house.
Oh, it's not. I know it's not your.
This is a five-star hotel.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah,
we were trying to make it like a nice little
Yes.
lounge. Maybe next time we'll have a little bit of books around. But
Thank you.
thank you for your time, everyone, and thank you, Lisa, Prof.
You, Lisa?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the next session coming to you soon. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and share this video and support the movement, FireStarter Africa. Thank you.